The eighth meeting of the Senate State and Local Government Committee is called to order. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Rocky Adams, Senator Chambers Armstrong, Senator Herron, Senator Maiden, Senator Mays Bledsoe, Senator McDaniel, Senator Mills, Senator Rawlings, Senator Tishner, Vice Chair Elkins, Chair Nemus.
Present. We have quorum in our duly constituted business. Reminders, turn your cell phones off and then you turn your microphones on when you're speaking. The first item on the agenda is Senate Bill 133, sponsored by Senator Nunn. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am Matt Nunn, Senator for Senate District 17, and I do have a guest.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Alex McGarrett, and I'm the General Counsel for State Auditor Allison Ball.
We have a sub. There's a motion to adopt a sub. We have a motion to second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The sub is adopted. Continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 133 was born, will start, I guess you'd say, this summer with a conversation with my local Parks and Rec director. He and I were having a pint at a local establishment that he and I like to frequent, and he was talking about the audit burdens that they have and how much of it's a financial burden, it's a time burden, but they're having an increasingly difficult time finding an audit firm to conduct the audits, and so they're getting dangerously close to being out of compliance with the time thresholds every year when they have to do those audits. And so I said, well, I'll take a look at that. No more than a week or two later, I was at the ball field, and the director of our health department came to me, and she starts talking about the burdensome audits and how inefficient it is, and for all the same reasons. I said, well, this looks like we really have a problem. So I got to work on seeing how we might solve it. So I got with a bill drafter, and I had a first draft done, and I said, well, now I need to go to the auditor's office because I wouldn't dream of changing audit requirements that are important for taxpayer transparency without having the auditor look at it and hopefully endorse it. And when I did, they were happy to help me, and they gave me a ton of other ideas and that they've seen throughout the state how we can make audits more efficient for taxpayers, not reducing transparency, but being more efficient. I come from the private sector and worked at a publicly traded company that has to comply with Sarbanes-Oxley. And so in Sarbanes-Oxley, there is a materiality threshold. We don't audit every department every year. We look at materiality so we're appropriately evaluating risks. And I took a similar kind of approach here. Wanted to take a smart, strategic approach to ensuring that we are applying taxpayer dollars efficiently. For example, I heard from a SPGE in the western part of the state. They say they spend about 25% of their annual budget on an audit. I don't think that's an appropriate use of taxpayer dollars. Again, transparency is important, but we want to be wise with how we use those dollars. And so that's the approach that we took here. And so I'll just talk about Section 1, for example, and then I'll open up the questions. So what Section 1 does is it changes the thresholds in the statute from right now, if you have $100,000 or more of annual receipts, you have to annually prepare a financial statement every 4 years, contract for the application of attestation engagement, all these different things. We just raised that from $100,000 to $500,000. And the next threshold was $500,000. We raised that to $1 million. But the other key thing that we did is those entities that do have over $1 million in annual receipts, they currently have to get an annual audit, no questions asked. And that's true of my health department and my public recs department. What this bill does, though, it says if you get two clean audits back to back, you can then go to a less frequent audit cycle. So what we're saying is if you're a properly run entity, you've been audited twice in a row, a completely clean audit, you can then move to a less frequent cycle. And with that, I'll open up to questions.
We have any questions? Seeing no questions. Well, that's what I was just going to ask. Okay, we have a motion and a second on Senate Bill 133 as amended by the committee substitute. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Rocky Adams, Senator Chambers Armstrong, Senator Elkins,
Aye.
Senator Herron, Senator Maiden, Senator Mays Bledsoe, Senator McDaniel, Senator Mills, Senator Rawlings, Senator Tishner, Chair Nemus.
Aye. Senate Bill 133, as amended by committee substitute, passes with a favorable expression, 8-0. We expect it to do so on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
The next item on the agenda is Senate Bill 226, sponsored by Senator Elkins. Senator Elkins, please introduce yourself and your guest. And are you just going to do death stuff, or do you have any other bills?
People are dying to get me to pass a bill for them. You knew that was coming, right? Senator Greg Elkins, representing the 28th Senate District.
I'm Sidney Fogel with the Funeral Directors Association of Kentucky.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize for being late. We were a little confusion with the fire drill or whatever we had earlier. We were told in Natural Resources everything was 30 minutes behind.
Now, how long we've been around each other?
Yeah, it's a long time, yeah. So,
Okay.
well, they said we were going to start at 11:30, so that's why I texted
Well,
you.
who said that?
I'm not going
You
to tell.
don't, you don't have to answer
I'm not
that.
going to tell.
11 or 11:30 was no question as whether it was here or outside. Okay.
I'm here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, members of the committee, for allowing me to present Senate Bill 226. Senate Bill 226 would allow funeral directors to take up to 15% administrative fee once a pre-need funeral is fully funded. Kentucky is currently one of the few states that does not allow this to happen or to take place. A pre-need burial contract, also known as a trust, is a way to fund a funeral for the future. Another option is to purchase an insurance policy, and those policies are regulated by the Department of Insurance. This bill does not impact that option. A pre-need burial contract is a contract that we're talking about today is regulated by the Attorney General's office. It is a funding mechanism in which an individual can place money in a trust account that accrues interest until those funds are needed. The account can be fully funded at the time of purchase, or it may be funded through periodic deposits, all of which accrue interest. At the time of the funeral, the money is then used to pay the funeral expense, and the money remaining in the trust account after expenses are paid to the estate of the deceased. For example, if I want a $10,000 funeral and I pay it all at once, the funeral director could take up to 15% or $1,500 and leave the $8,500 remaining for the funeral itself in an interest-bearing trust account. If I want to pay it in 20 installments of $500 a month, I can do that as well, and once that is fully funded, the funeral director can then take his 15% fee. Pre-need burial contracts are a better product than probably the insurance policies are. With that, Mr. Chairman, it's pretty simple bill, as I like to say with these small ones, but I will turn it over to my guest, who is an expert on the matter, and let him add anything that he may.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
That was a very quiet motion. I didn't hear it.
Okay. We don't have a sub or anything, do we?
I found it now.
Yeah. I've been asking for a second again.
Okay. Okay. We have motion and second on Senate Bill 226. Is there any questions? If not, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Rocky Adams, Senator Chambers Armstrong, Senator Elkins,
Aye.
Senator Herron, Senator Maiden, Senator Mays Bledsoe, Senator McDaniel, Senator Mills, Senator Rawlings, Senator Tishner, Chair Nemus.
Aye. Senate Bill 226 passes with favorable expression, 8-0, and should do so on the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Now we're
Thank you,
gonna-
members of the committee.
We're going to go,
Senator Maiden's not here.
we're going to go out of order here. We're going to do Senate Joint Resolution 62. Senator Maiden, you have the floor. Please introduce yourself and
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry about that. We're having some pretty heated energy discussion over there. I wanted to stay, even though this is important too. The energy seems to be a hot topic in Kentucky right now. So I'm Senator Maiden, Senate District 29, and this is really a pretty direct, simple resolution. As you well know, 2022, 2025, we had serious flooding in eastern Kentucky, and then even in 25, it even got into a lot of central Kentucky and all over the state. I think for the first time ever, we had all 120 counties declared state of emergency for the first time ever. So I seldom go into any of my district or my areas that people are not asking me about cleaning out the ditches and the creeks and the streams, and things are getting flooded now that never got flooded before. And I often tell a story about going into bail fiscal court one day, and one of the masters talking about is a young kid stepping off the bridge and he couldn't hit the bottom of the creek. But now he said it'd rained 2 hours and it'd come up over the bridge. So the creeks are full. People can point fingers and say what they want to say, whether it's coal, timber, whatever, they're full. You know, and back in my days growing up, people would get in the creeks with their tractors and whatever, and they get rock and dirt and stuff out and put on the roads. You know, we didn't have a lot of blacktop and stuff back then. So President Stivers and I were having breakfast one day, and I was talking to him about how to address this, and he said, well, you know, first thing we got to do is try to get a clearer understanding from the Division of Water. And basically this resolution is asking the Division of Water to give local governments the some guidance and how to get in the creeks and clean them out.
I think you described it pretty good. We just want to be able to clean out our creeks and waterways.
Pretty simple.
So
That's
we
all
have
I
any
needed to hear.
questions, comments? Seeing none, Madam Chair, please call the roll. Madam Secretary.
Senator Rocky Adams. Senator Chambers Armstrong. Senator Elkins.
Aye.
Senator Heron. Senator Maiden. Senator Mays Bledsoe. Senator McDaniel. Senator Mills. Senator Rawlings.
Aye.
Senator Tishner. Chair Nemus.
Aye. Senate Joint Resolution 62 passes with favorable expression, and we expect it to do so on the floor. The next item on the agenda is Senate Bill 261. President Stivers, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This may seem to be, may I go ahead, please? Excuse me.
Yes, please.
This may seem a little bit of a trivial matter to individuals who might live in the flatlands like Lexington or Louisville. But when you live in the mountains of eastern Kentucky, a swinging bridge happens to be a vital part of your transportation needs. Many of the places that we drive through, be it the Cumberland River going through Harlan and Bell and part of Letcher County and Knox, the three forks of the Kentucky which come together in Beattyville, all the offshoots and tributaries, they go in between mountains, and over the years you've had what they call low water bridges built. Some people who may be aware of what Wolfe County and Owsley County are like will know that when we have floods, and probably today, people will not be able to get off of like U.S. Highway 421, which is a federal highway, go across the low water bridge to get to their house because it'll be flooded. So over the years, what has happened is swinging bridges. And if you're not familiar with a swinging bridge, it is pretty much a swinging bridge. You have an abutment on generally either county, city, state, or federal right-of-way that's built so when the water rises above the level of the bridge, it goes over it, crosses the river, and generally winds up on somebody's private property because they're the first landowner on the other side of the bridge. With this, they have been built all through eastern Kentucky over the years, and nobody knows who owns them. Nobody knows who's responsible for them. Nobody knows who has liability. So they are in cities, they are in counties, they are a mix of different type of ownerships. So nobody wants to spend money on them because they don't know if they have the authority to do it, to upkeep it. But on a day like today when there may be high water and you look and there's generally like little parking areas. People will have cars on this side of the river to when they get there, but once they get across off of the main road, they'll have a car parked there because it still may be a mile that you get to other landowners that are on the other side of the creek. So what this bill does is define who can take responsibility and the fact that they are also used for a tourism aspect in many places because people haven't ever been on a swinging bridge. I literally had Cleo Battle, who is the tourism director in Louisville, come down to Manchester and say, "What's a swinging bridge?" Never been on a swinging bridge. Wanted to walk on a swinging bridge. Rebecca Flashacre from Louisville did the same thing. They've never seen a swinging bridge. So what 261 does is it clarifies that so everybody knows what the duties and responsibilities are and permits, if they want to, cities and counties to expend money for the maintenance and upkeep of these bridges.
Does that describe the sub also?
Actually, I think it does not, because what the sub does, the sub only, it did not have cities in it. It had then inserted cities to be similarly situated as counties. I believe that's
Well,
what.
let's adopt a sub. Is there a motion to adopt a sub? Motion, second. All in favor say aye. Aye. The sub has been adopted. Continue. Are you finished?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, that's the explanation of the bill, and we gladly accept any
We have a
questions.
motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Rocky Adams, Senator Chambers Armstrong, Senator Elkins,
Explain my vote, Mr.
Please.
Chair. Mr. President, I do live in Flatland, but I have been on many swinging bridges in my Pike County routes, and so with that, I vote aye.
Senator Herron, Senator Maiden, Senator Mays Bledsoe, Senator McDaniel, Senator Mills, Senator Rawlings, Senator Tishner, Chair Nemus.
Aye. Senate Bill 61, as amended by the committee substitute, passes with favorable expression, 9-0, expected to do so on the floor. Thank you. And the next item on the agenda is also President Stivers, Senate Bill 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This actually gets into a little bit more complexity than swinging bridges. Several years ago, the Marcy's Law was placed on the ballot by question, not by full text. After it was passed, and pretty much overwhelming, it was challenged to say that it had to be in whole text of how the change of the Constitution would be, not by ballot question. And it was struck down as being an unconstitutional delivery of a proposition to amend the Kentucky Constitution. Came back a couple years later after that ruling and put the full text of Marcy's Law on the ballot. It passed again, but that now is the text that you'll read in the Constitution. To my knowledge, that was the first time that was required to have the full text on the ballot. Now, since then, we've had a couple of more issues that the full text has been on there. So most states do it as I am proposing. To do it by question, you can then go to a site or a newspaper and see what the full text would be. And I'm not sure what the number of states are, but I think it is a majority of the states who have similarly situated styles that we do it by this, by putting it on the ballot by the question, not by the full text. So the court in its ruling, and I know as one of my fellow members in the legislature says, when you start talking about lawyer stuff, I just glaze over and zone out. So I'll look at the two lawyers on the committee as I see one of the members of the committee shaking their head that they may zone out. But this is what's intriguing about this. If it was unconstitutional to put Marcy's Law on the ballot in that form, constitutionality, whether it is today or 50 years ago, is still a question. Much of our Constitution, when it has been reformed, if not all, has been done by a ballot question, not by the full text of the language. So in 1976, when they did the Judicial Reform Act, which then created district courts and the Supreme Court of Kentucky that took probates away from county judges who were not necessarily of legal background, that was done by ballot initiative, not by full text. So the question, if it was unconstitutional back in 2000 and what was it, 16, 18, whatever it was on, it had to be unconstitutional when the courts were formed. So I tend to wonder when the Supreme Court says this, if even the Supreme Court, since it was an unconstitutional placement of the language on the ballot, if they even exist. Because unconstitutionality is unconstitutional ab initio. Next question becomes, when we did the constitutional question of family courts, that was done by ballot question, not by full text of the ballot. I know that because I was here and I was a sponsor of the bill. Do family courts exist? Then we can go back and say this. When the Constitution was changed to do gubernatorial succession, it was done by ballot question, not by full text of the Constitution. So have the last 5 governors' races been unconstitutional? Because it was only done by question. And if that's true, the position of the Senate president doesn't exist. So what I'm trying to do here is
So we have a vote on that now?
Yeah, probably win. But I'm trying to clarify this. This is what has been done to our Constitution up until about 6 years ago, the way we amend it by ballot question, not by full text. And I think there becomes a lot of questions in the law of what does or does not exist based on the ruling of the Supreme Court about 6 years ago. That's the explanation of 262.
Are there any questions or comments? Motion. We have a motion and a second. But I have a question. I think I'll do it after. I could do it now. This clarifies what it can be done, whether it's by full text or not. Correct?
It says we can put it on by ballot question, not by full text.
And that would be a great thing. But as far as what has happened in the past, isn't there something in the law that if it has been going on so long that even though you
latches?
Yes. Is that
there is a question of latches, but I don't know how latches applies to this because it was unconstitutional. If it was unconstitutional at the time, it's unconstitutional then, it was unconstitutional now. And how did somebody who was born 8 years ago, 10 years ago, 12 years ago,
I
What is
understand
their
your point. They
rights?
didn't use precedents, but we're not arguing the point of whether it's constitutional or
No, but this is the
unconstitutional.
confusion
That was
that
the
is-
point you were making. So
True. This
And
is the confusion that ruling of the Supreme Court has created
And-
in some people's minds.
this will solve it. And
It would make it much easier.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll. So, Senator Elkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. President, I do have one question because this is a really good bill in my opinion, and it's probably a rhetorical question, but had those previous questions been by text, how many of them do you think would have passed?
The Judicial Reform Act of the 70s, I think, was like 18 pages long. And that would have had to been on the full ballot. I think that's right. I may be off, but I think the full text of that was definitely in the teens.
Would have been so confusing that the voter could have never known what they were going to vote for. And typically in a constitutional amendment, I think most voters are a default no. And so they have to read it and understand it and come to a yes, I think is the way most voters approach a constitutional amendment. And I would argue that the way we're doing them now, it's almost impossible to pass a constitutional amendment, no matter how good it may be. So,
That is the purpose of this bill in part.
very good bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, now, Madam Secretary.
Senator Rocky Adams. Senator Chambers Armstrong.
May I explain my no vote, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I do think that Senator Stivers has raised a really interesting constitutional wormhole that I'm going to spend some time digging down today. However, I'm concerned. Thankfully, this is a one-sentence bill, so I was able to read it all. But it's not clear to me, based on the bill itself, who decides what's a fair and accurate summary. I believe there's a role in elections for proponents and opponents to give their own summaries, and sometimes people have differing interpretations. So I'm going to vote no for today. Thank you.
Senator Elkins.
Aye.
Senator Herron. Senator Maiden. Senator Mays Bledsoe. Senator McDaniel. Senator Mills. Senator Rawlings. Senator Tishner. Chair Nemus.
Aye. Lost somebody. Okay. Senate Bill 262 passes with favorable expression 7-1 and expected so on the floor. And Senator Stivers, thank you for not trying to respond to the question during a response, but I will give you that chance now if you'd like to. Okay, thank you very much. We are adjourned.